Welcome everyone to another episode of the Camper Report. Your host Benjamin Camperman. The second show I've done since my reboot. I was gone for like 2 months. Been very busy, but today we have Rob Schuh. Today we're a little bit late because he was doing a show with 49ers First Takes. Go check that out. That was a great show. So, how are you doing? First off, Rob, and I mean, it's good to have you on. It's been a little while, a few months since we've last talked. So good to have you on. And how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Benjamin. I appreciate you having me back on. I do enjoy coming on your program. I feel like we have good conversations, and it has been a jam-packed day for me talking
Yeah,
Niners, which is always a good thing. Like, it's not that I hit my wall and I'm like, I can't possibly talk about Niners anymore. No, it is I get to talk about Niners for another freaking episode, and I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, another few hours. I mean, I could talk for Niners for hours, but the thing is like, how could you talk for so many hours straight and your mouth and your voice just not being like, so.
Yeah, a lot of practice doing it for sure. A lot of practice.
Yeah.
When you get used to having a full day where you are usually on presence, like on stage presence, you sort of get used to being the guy who just never shuts up.
Yeah, that's true. So let's get it going. Let's get it rolling. Again, this is a season where a lot of question marks on the 49ers team, as you know. But at the same time, there's a lot of positions that I'm excited for. I feel like the receiving room is a lot deeper. The offensive line room is a lot deeper, or not offensive line. The cornerback room is deeper. My bad.
Yes,
Defensive line. Yeah. So, anyways, there's a lot of positions that are very deep. What out of all the positions, what is your most excited? Like, what is gonna be the most exciting position group to watch this next season? Because there's a lot of intriguing ones that maybe we've lost a few guys, and I'm interested to see how we bounce back from losing guys like K'Wan Williams. So
you mentioned a few that are absolutely going to be exciting to watch. And the 49ers are an incredibly deep team. And therefore, you can point to so many of these position groups and say to yourself, well, hell, I mean, the running back room, it didn't look like it was going to be terribly exciting. And then the Niners go ahead and spend the draft pick that they do on Ty Davis-Price. All of a sudden, I'm intrigued watching that. You look at the wide receiver room. I feel like there are 5 locks there when you look at Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Jawan Jennings, Ray McLeod, Danny Gray. But then who's that 6th wide receiver going to be? That'll be exciting. Offensive line is a little more of a train wreck, but like it's going to be exciting to watch. On the defensive side of the ball, couldn't agree more about the cornerbacks. Linebacker group is potentially one of the deepest in the NFL. But when I get excited about a position group that I'm going to watch this season, it's the one that the Niners continue to invest in over and over and over again, and it is that defensive line. It's going to be a freaking monster this year. When you get the pass rush efficiency of a bookend opposite of Nick Bosa, similar to what happened in 2019, when you go back and look at those stats in 2019, when you had a healthy D Ford out there, a speed rusher opposite of Bosa, the efficiency metrics went through the roof. There's some question marks along the D line, but that's the one I am really excited to see.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, it's going to be so deep. It's going to be hard for them to make those cuts come
real hard.
53-man roster because they have 14 whatever guys that can all contribute. For me, it's the most intriguing and the most questioned one is the nickelback and just the whole cornerback position, because I'm going to be excited to see Charvarius Ward, who we haven't seen really a good corner on this team for it's been quite a few years now. So even though he's not the best in the league, but he's still going to be locked down. That's going to be really interesting because the biggest downfall with the 49ers now, and I'll get into this later, but the biggest downfall with the 49ers now is, or it used to be, is they didn't have good corners, and so the defensive line would have to do it all. But now I feel like it's a lot more well-rounded of a team. You've got a second-year defensive coordinator, so it's a lot well-rounded, and now you finally have a good cornerback core that can maybe slow down guys like Matthew Stafford when they're on a 2-minute drive at the end of the game. So it's going to be the most intriguing just because I'm really excited to see who they put at nickel corner. My question to you, do you think Dante Johnson starts the season week 1 at nickel?
Interesting. I mean, it seems to me at this point in time that the 49ers are leaning in the direction of Darqueze Dennard. And that struck me. It came at me by surprise, if I'm honest about it. I did not see that one coming. I saw, much like you laid out there, I saw nickel corner as a question mark. Like the Niners did not do much to address that position in the offseason. It felt like a weakness. Let K'Waun Williams go. He signs the deal with Denver and didn't bring in any replacement. I bought on early with what Matt Barrows had thrown out there, that Emmanuel Moseley has experience playing in the nickel. So you could have a scenario where if you have a healthy Jason Verrett, you have Charvarius Ward on one side, Jason Verrett on the other, and Emmanuel Moseley sliding into the nickel spot there. It doesn't seem as if that's the direction the 49ers are going to go. It's too early to say because Jason Verrett isn't out there practicing yet. So it could go in that direction. But I think both things are true. There are two realities here, and you illustrated them very well. One, that this cornerback room is extremely deep. If Jason Verrett is healthy and does make the 53-man roster, you're looking at 4 starting caliber freaking cornerbacks on our team. Ambry Thomas looks like he's bulked up a little bit at the end of last season. I thought he had earned that second starting cornerback spot. Clearly, Emmanuel Moseley has shown what he has. When healthy, Jason Verrett has flashed what he has, and Charvarius Ward just got paid as the undisputed cornerback 1. So it's a deep room. It's weird to say, hey, we have 4 starting caliber cornerbacks, and we may not have a nickel cornerback on the roster. So am I comfortable in the depth there with Dante Johnson? I like him as a Swiss Army knife. I like the fact that he knows every position on the defensive backfield. I believe he's a valuable member to this team. I also think there's a chance that he doesn't make the 53-man roster and he's on the bubble being brought back as he has been so many years because the Niners sort of know he's going to be available if they do cut him when they get down to 53.
Another thing is like Dante Johnson's been solid, but wouldn't Jason Verrett, because I was hearing somebody talk today, and they said like they were counting out Jason Verrett completely at the nickel. I thought he played a little nickel in his time or in his career.
You know, I don't know specifically that he has experience there. I couldn't speak to that. One thing that I have heard with Jason Verrett, which is an intriguing thing to consider, is what strategy will the 49ers pursue with Jason Verrett? Because you could argue if he's healthy and he returns to 2020 form, he absolutely deserves to be one of the 2 starting cornerbacks. But then the odd man out is Emmanuel Moseley. I mean, that's a high caliber player who has a pretty good track record of being able to stay healthy for the majority of the season, unlike Jason Verrett. Would you be better off having Emmanuel Moseley start opposite of Charvarius Ward and using Jason Verrett more sparingly, right? Fewer reps are fewer chances for him to get injured another time. Not that I'm saying that's the likely scenario, but let's be honest that, you know, his body's been through a lot at this point.
And do you think they maybe use a little bit more 3 linebacker kind of sets this year, or no? Is that not really their style in place of like the nickel corner?
You know, it hasn't been their style, but they do get creative with some of their dime packages, bringing in safeties to play down closer to the line of scrimmage. So would that be interchangeable now that they have an incredibly deep roster at that linebacker position with Fred Warner, with Azeez Al-Shaair, with Dre Greenlaw? I think that's a distinct possibility. The 49ers value versatility. So if they believe that they can cover multiple sets with that look, then I think they will. If they feel limited by having the speed of a linebacker out there instead of the speed of a safety, then they probably trend toward one of those bigger bodied safeties that's out there. I mean, you have a Tarvarius Moore out there.
I was about to say him.
Yeah. Very, very athletic dude that can cover a lot of ground. Who knows what his conditioning will be like in returning from an Achilles? That oftentimes saps some athleticism from the individual. True. You remember, you know, Richard Sherman coming back from that, Michael Crabtree. It took them some time to return to form. So maybe not at the beginning of the season. Maybe at the beginning of the season, we see more of the 3 linebacker sets. I'll be keeping my eye on potential trades. I still think it's possible, although unlikely at this point, that the Niners do move on from Dre Greenlaw, potentially. You have both of those guys, Azeez and Dre, hitting free agency next year. Ideally, you'd like to get something in return for them sooner instead of waiting for one of those compensatory draft picks, which might not be all that big considering middle linebacker salaries.
Yeah, that's true as well. And so going back to the defensive line, one guy that I think we're missing and maybe overlooking, or maybe Toure or whatever from the Colts.
Yes.
That's another guy that I'm like, where is he going to fit in? Like, there's so many, and it's a good question. It's a good question to have because there's so many guys that, like, where is, like, that's a question mark, but it's a good question to ask yourself. But I think he makes the team as well. And I'm sorry to say it, but maybe Samson Ebukam is the odd man out. That's something to think about.
That one feels like it could be. I think you're onto something there. Definitely agree that D'Amico Toure makes the team. That was a great addition when they made that addition. I almost said to myself, now you don't have to select a edge rusher in the draft. You should. That's where the 49ers invest their assets, but it alleviated the need. It allowed the 49ers to focus on best player available. I thought that best player available was Drake Jackson. But you said this earlier. It is going to be a very challenging cut down day. I will not be surprised if the 49ers use some sort of a minor hamstring pull to put somebody on IR, right? I mean, that seems to be the tendency now that there are these flexible IR rules where you can bring players back, that if you have someone during training camp get a legitimate injury, although not a serious injury, the team elects to put them on IR, and they essentially become a backup player that can come back as a reinforcement later in the year. I thought they did so with the 6th-round draft pick of the defensive tackle as well, who was recovering from that knee injury. You think that he'll be snuck onto IR or the PUP list?
Yeah,
and the same could be true.
What's his name? From UCF you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. But anyways, yeah, that's an interesting thing as well. That's what they tried to do with, I think it was DJ Moore. I think they tried to do it with him, and he got stolen by the Seahawks.
Swooped up.
Yeah. So moving on, we've been on this topic for a while, but it's a good one. It's a very question. It's the biggest question this off season. Moving on, and this is the title of the show. This is AFC and AFC West and NFC South. The 49ers, how many games are they going to win? Because the AFC West is tough. The NFC South is okay. I mean, they have like one, maybe two good teams. So how many games will the 49ers win between the NFC South and AFC West? I'm going to give you my number right now. It's 5-3.
5-3?
I think they have to at least split the Buccaneers and Saints game. I think they have to win that. Now, the Buccaneers game, it's tough because I think it's on the road later in the year. I think here I can quickly. So yeah, the Buccaneers is actually at home later on in the year, but it's a late game in the year. I think they're gonna beat the Saints, beat the Falcons, beat the Panthers, and then the only loss I think will be versus the Bucs, just because it's a later game in the year. They play the Saints earlier, and then they also have to play the Buccaneers a few weeks later. And then the Broncos, I think that's a loss, week 3. The 49ers, I think the only guy who can really, it's Russell Wilson. They've always had trouble against him, and the thing is the Broncos and just the talent that they have, it's going to be tough to slow him down. I mean, and it's going to be at Broncos. So that I think is going to be a loss. But the thing is the Chiefs. I think I actually have that as a win because it's earlier on in the year. And the thing is it's at home. And so it's at home. It's earlier on in the year. Chargers, that's so tough because it's getting towards the later. It's week 10.
Yeah, and November 13th.
Yeah, and the pass rush I think is just going to completely eat Trey Lance. Like, they have the best pass rush in the league, and that's another reason why I think they're going to lose to the Broncos as well, because they have a pretty good pass rush. And then Raiders, I think week 17, it's at Raiders, but I think it's going to be a must-win game, and I think they get it done there. So 5-3, and they lose 2 in the AFC West. I think they have to win at least 5 of them to really guarantee their spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing here, Benjamin, is you have just laid out what I went through when I did my full schedule breakdown. Yeah. After the schedule came out and we knew when the games were, I did my way too early schedule prediction. I landed with the 49ers at 11-6. And within those games that you're talking about, I also landed at 5-3. I had them a little bit different than you did. I had us losing to Kansas City, beating the Chargers in that one because we have the bye that comes right before that November 13th matchup against the Chargers. And with Kansas City, it's after they return from that 2-week East Coast jaunt. And in the past, the 49ers have done really well on the East Coast. They go out there, they win both of the games because they stay out there on the East Coast. They acclimate themselves to the East Coast time zone. But then they come back and they have dropped that next one because they're exhausted, whatever it is. That's the historic way they've gone about it. Now, in looking at this question, what I didn't want to do is just say, well, I've already done this mental exercise and I'm going to go back and I'm going to use those. So what I redid was all of my thoughts around this. I went back through and examined these teams yet again because things have changed. My mind has changed in that time frame, right? I have a different perception of it. And in going back through, I actually see the 49ers as breaking out at 4-4 within those two divisions. I agree with you that they're going to struggle with Denver. I think that Russell Wilson is our kryptonite, and I think that pass rush is going to be tough to overcome.
Better supporting cast than the Seahawks ever had him.
Right.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy's not going to be suspended, right? That whole thing got dropped. All the charges dropped.
Sunday night on the road.
Yeah, in Denver, right?
I'm going to actually be at that game probably.
Ooh, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
That will be a very good one. At altitude, that's going to be a tough one. So, yes, I have them losing that. Carolina, Atlanta, on the East Coast, back-to-back. I have them winning both of those because of that. Again, back to the historic trend. The Niners stay on the East Coast in between those matchups. They don't fly back and forth. They acclimate to the East Coast, and they have done well on those trips. Plus, both of those teams are, let's face it, not great competition.
Yeah.
Right? They're at the lower end. And this is the NFL. Anyone can win any given Sunday. I'm not discounting them, but it seems more likely the Niners win those. Then we get to Kansas City. I believe the Niners will drop that one, as I said earlier, and I tie it to the amount of travel they will have just done. They'll be exhausted. They'll get home, and it's a very tough matchup against the Chiefs. Now, what I had changed this time around was the game against the Chargers. Previously, my reasoning was Shanahan's got a full week to prepare. He's got the bye. He's going to be coming off. I had predicted we would drop back-to-back games. Drop to Kansas City on October 23rd, and then drop the one to the Rams in SoFi Stadium October 30th. So I had them going into the bye, dropping 2 games. They would be fired up in that scenario. I'm beginning to believe that I overestimated the Rams, and therefore I'm changing that scenario a little bit. So coming out of the bye, I have them going up against the Chargers, and I don't know the extra week is going to matter. I look at that ferocious pass rush of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. If they're healthy and on the field at the same time there, offensive weapons surrounding Justin Herbert, that's going to be a tough matchup. So I gave that one to the Chargers this time around. That's what changed for me. Still have them beating the New Orleans Saints. I believe that could be a tough matchup, but one that the Niners can handle. And then Tampa Bay, I agree with you. Even though it's at home, I have the Niners dropping that one. Tampa Bay is stacked right now.
Yes, they are. And the thing is like my thing with the Chiefs is I think the 49ers now are a lot better equipped to beat the Chiefs or any mobile quarterback, really.
Yeah.
Mobile quarterback. But the thing is, and they don't have Tyreek Hill and things like that. And I think the Chiefs' run game is slightly, I don't know what they did with it this year. So, and you can't beat the 49ers with just passing the ball. And the thing is like, I think the Chargers, your thing with the Chargers is, or whatever, they actually have a good offensive line to match up with the 49ers, like a really good offensive line. So that's interesting as well. The Raiders game, I think we're going to be able to get after Derek Carr. Again, Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, that's my only concern. But other than that, I think we could be able, and we've always had pretty good success against Devontae Adams. Now with Charvarius Ward, it could all change.
Yes.
And I just think we're going to be way better against good receivers this year. Like,
I
I think we're going to
agree.
be able to shut him down at least. So
I agree because you do have the depth at cornerback, and you're looking at a very, very stacked AFC West. It's entirely possible that the Raiders are out of playoff contention at that point, and that would totally change the dynamic. If they're fighting for that last playoff spot, now it's going to be a tougher matchup.
Yeah, and that's true as well. And the other thing I go back to is going to the NFC West. I'm looking at around 3-3 in the NFC West. Just to be fair, maybe we drop a game or whatever. 3-3, you add that on 5-3. You're looking at 8 wins, and then a win against Chicago, and a win I think against maybe the Washington Commanders.
Right.
Maybe 10 wins there. And then as well as I think another sleeper. Hold on. Another sleeper one that could be a sleeper upset that we could actually lose to is the Commanders, because they have Carson Wentz. We've always had trouble against them. So that's a game. So you can't really count out any games on this schedule. But yeah, if they all honestly have to almost go 5-3 in that stretch between those two divisions.
Yeah, and with the Commanders, I look at that team as underperforming last year. That I expected more out of them in 2021. I would look for that defense to rebound and have a good season. Adding in Carson Wentz, he may not have to do as much as one would think. If that defense performs at the level they're capable of, Commanders could be a tough matchup.
Yeah, him and Russell Wilson have always, I don't know why. It's just them too. I don't know why. They always do the best. But then again, we have better corners this year. So maybe Carson Wentz will have a rougher time, because hopefully we'll be able to pick off some more of his dangerous passes that we never could in the past. So yeah. Moving on, we'll get anything else to say on that, or are you?
No, I'm good with the next topic.
Okay. Yeah. Moving on. Matchups. So now we're going to go to matchups in this schedule. Matchup wise, who is the hardest? And I just mentioned it, or mentioned 2 teams that I think will be very hard. Hardest teams matchup wise that the 49ers will face this year.
Initially, I would have looked at the Kansas City Chiefs. That was who I had my eye on from the outset when thinking about this schedule.
Yeah.
Again, going through this mental exercise fresh before this show, I'm going to single out 2 teams. Certainly, I got to give it to Tommy Boy, right? Tampa Bay is going to be a tough matchup. I love the addition they just made to the freaking defensive line in Akeem Hicks, right? That's going to be even tougher for the 49ers going up against that defense. Ferocious defensive line. They get after it. Great linebackers. And then on the other side, Tom frickin' Brady. And so that's a matchup nightmare. There's a reason why they are one of the top couple of teams in everyone's power rankings. That's going to be tough. But the other one was the fresh perspective for me, and it is the Los Angeles Chargers. I believe that defense will give the 49ers offensive line fits. And Lance is a young quarterback. You don't know how he's going to respond to getting rattled like that. Oftentimes, it's the more veteran quarterbacks who are able to sustain a barrage of pressure.
Yeah.
You never know with a young quarterback. They could. I'm not going to say that Lance is made up of the type of material that would fold in that situation, but any quarterback, no matter how great, can in those in those particular situations can get pressure and can respond poorly to it, right? Make poor decisions. So I see that as an issue for the defense. And then I definitely view the Chargers as one of the more potent offensive attacks, a well-balanced attack as well. And so they can attack the 49ers from varying angles. I think that the combination of the two leaves me with a distinct impression that that's going to be a tough game, even coming out of the bye, rested and prepared to play them.
True. That's a good point as well. I think for me, it comes the Broncos. Now, maybe I think the Broncos, we will have over them. I don't think they have a very good O-line. I don't think so.
I don't believe that they do.
Bowles at the left tackle, but he's kind of an interesting guy. So the Broncos, the only reason why I say that is because of Russell Wilson. A sneaky one, though, and I said this a few minutes ago, the Commanders with Carson Wentz.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what it is. Again, it's later on. I think it's later on in the year, right? It's like one of the last weeks. So we're gonna be tired. Again, that could be a game that we have to win. But if that pass rush for them can step it up, like you said, I think it could be a very good pass rush. And then I think the Saints is gonna be rough as well because don't we? No, we don't have them in New Orleans. So
No, that
maybe
is
not.
at home, end of
Okay, never
November.
mind.
We'll be coming back from the game. That one is tough because we're
Yeah.
coming back from the game in Mexico City, which is
Okay.
substantially more travel miles than one would think. And it's a short week. We play November 21st in Mexico City, and then are back home. So we play Monday night, November 21st, and then we're back home
Right.
Sunday, 6-day week, playing New
Okay.
Orleans at Santa Clara.
Okay, so that might be a little tough, but another thing that I've got, and another matchup, well, that I'm glad that isn't in Arrowhead, the Chiefs. That's
Yes.
one that I'm so glad that isn't in Arrowhead. I was gonna say this earlier, but I am really glad that this isn't in Arrowhead because that would be rough for a young kid like Trey earlier on in the season. It would be within his first 8 starts, so that would be rough as well.
Yes, it would. That would be very rough.
Celts Chronicles coming in. By the way, prayers for his family. They got in a car crash. They were all okay. But really cool dude, Celts Chronicles. Go subscribe to him. Two cool dudes talking 49ers. Yep, definitely. I don't know if I'm cool, but you're like the OG 49ers. So yeah, you're pretty
Hey, man, you're definitely cool. You are definitely cool, Benjamin.
Yeah. So moving on, matchup. So we just went to the matchups, but now we're gonna talk about a little bit reflecting on the draft. I didn't really get to cover this on my channel that much, the draft. But if this draft taught us anything, and again, there was so many receivers taken, or just a lot of teams reaching for receivers, not as many. Just yeah, a lot of receivers taken, and a lot of teams maybe like trading up or trying to like it was a known commodity receivers in this draft.
It
So
was.
I mean the NFL, I mean it was a very pass first league, but this draft taught us that it's becoming more of a pass first league. So would the 49ers be smart to transition to that as well? I mean, a lot of teams are transitioning to pass first. Would the 49ers be smart to transition to that style as well?
So I'm going to take this from a mixed response. I believe yes and no. It's intriguing to me that the entire league seems to be headed in this direction, as you astutely point out. And therefore, the 49ers do need to respond. If offenses are all taking one particular direction, your defense better damn well be able to cover those offenses. And so, yes, the 49ers need to amend their draft strategy and start drafting quarterbacks earlier in drafts, right? They do not spend second round picks, first round picks on defensive backs. Have not since Jaquiski Tart and Jimmy Ward. I think it's about time that we see a reversion to that. And maybe we did in a small part, because while they did not expend any considerable draft assets, they did spend considerable free agency dollars to bring in Charvarius Ward. So on defense, yes, I believe the 49ers should and would be smart to switch to that style to guard against that style, where DeMeco Ryans' unit is prepared to deal with all of these elite passers and pass catchers. On the other side of the ball. No, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, on the other side of the ball, it feels as if the 49ers continue to zig while the rest of the league is zagging. That you have all these defenses that need to get faster, lighter, and smaller to cover all of these wide receivers.
Mismatch. Yeah.
But if you're able to put a bowling ball out there like TDP and, Trey Sermon and Deebo Samuel, and all of a sudden you're running over and through these lighter, faster, smaller defenders, that is an intelligent way to attack defenses' weaknesses. And I think Kyle Shanahan does an incredible job of that. He educates all of his offensive coordinators on the defensive side of the ball first, so that they can attack weaknesses. And that feels like just what they're doing.
Yeah, I think maybe later on, like, so I was gonna say, like, it's funny because last time, they drafted obviously the secondary or whatever, um, it turned really good. Jimmy Ward, you got a star out of him, and then you
Right?
got a solid player out of Jakoski Tar. I mean,
Yes, you
he
did.
drops a lot of people. I mean, balls, but but you got two solid guys. So why wouldn't you go back to that? But again, it's a new resume that really this whole regime, sorry, not yeah, regime has really not drafted corners or anything like that in within the first 3 rounds. But I think another thing as well is Trey Lance. Maybe I don't think this year we're transitioning, but I think he's going to allow you when he gets more experience to transition to that style a little bit more. But maybe not this year because again, he's not going to be. He's definitely new. And maybe you want to protect him, especially earlier on, maybe for the playoffs, and maybe try to hold him back maybe until later on in the season when he's got a little more starts. So maybe not this year just because we've got a new quarterback. And previously we really hadn't had the chance to throw a ton because it was Jimmy Garoppolo. So
Right.
yeah.
No better way to support a young quarterback
Yeah.
than a phenomenal defense, good special teams, and solid run game. Now you're asking less of Trey Lance. It just takes pressure away from him. He could still have the breakout season. He still has no shortage of weapons. When you've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle as your 3 primary receivers, any one of those dudes is capable of having a 1,000-yard receiving season.
Yeah.
So it's not as if there's a dearth of talent when it comes to those weapons, but you have created some insulation around Lance, right? You have said, hey, even if you struggle, even if it takes you a while to get your feet underneath you, we will support you because this defense will keep games close. The run game will tire out opposing defenses, and it allows you to then just have to make a couple of plays here and there. And I am totally on board with what Kelts Chronicles threw in there. Ty Davis Price against a dime defender, right, who comes in because it's third and medium or whatever it is, and now you hand the ball off. You saw it with Deebo when he trucked people in the secondary, and I love watching people get trucked by my Niners.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do for sure. I mean, I just really hope that offensive line can hold up this year because to me that is the biggest question mark.
It's huge.
And it all starts with the offensive line and can they move people? And it's almost like I did not miss. Well, I wasn't missing Tom Compton until he left, and then I'm like, oh no. And I don't really want necessarily Mike McGlinchey to start, but what the 49ers are doing, and I think to support this run game, is they're stacking a bunch of players on one roster, a bunch of guys that they've drafted on the offensive line, late round guys, and saying, you guys just fight it out. One question that I have to ask you, and this is completely off topic about the offensive line. Do the 49ers, do you think they will give Mike McGlinchey the job right away? Or do you think they'll actually maybe give these other guys a little bit of a chance, or maybe Mike McGlinchey, they'll just play favorites with him and start him right away? You don't want to lose a game over him.
Yeah, judging historical context, my gut would tell me it will depend upon Mike McGlinchey's health. That if they believe Mike McGlinchey is fully healthy, he will get his starting position back right away. My guess is that the leash would be fairly short at that point, but maybe not. I mean, that as I say that out loud, I'm going to retract that statement, because if you go with McGlinchey, then you've got to let him fail a little bit. You've got to say, hey, if there's a little rust, we're going to let him play it off, because that's a real detriment to someone's, their bravado, to where you put him in, you're like, hey, McGlinchey, you're back out there, you're our starter, and then you pull him, you yank him, and you hurt his confidence, right? So you wouldn't want to do that. I could see a scenario where the 49ers say, listen, we're just better off with Jalen Moore out there for one game, or one of the other. I mean, they have a real log jam of depth at offensive line. I just don't see a clear-cut favorite to come in and grab the spot. So my instinct is, if McGlinchey's healthy enough, he goes back out there, because of that fact that there's no one a clear-cut favorite to come in and grab that right tackle spot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Celts Chronicles And hey, maybe what's his name? Justin School, real quick before
Yes.
Justin School. He always actually did pretty good at right tackle. Maybe you put him there. I mean, that's something that 2019, remember that? Like, I don't know why everyone's forgotten about him.
That 1 year of the injury, right? In preseason last year,
Yeah.
what was it? Did he break his ankle
No, I
during the
think it was the torn
preseason?
ACL.
And he was out for the year, right? He was going to be, I mean, he was basically locked in as the swing tackle. You're absolutely right to put his name
Yeah.
at the forefront of guys that would step into that tackle position.
Yep. And this is a good point that Celts Chronicles makes as well. We have the ability to play every which way on offense. It should be electric. I'm smiling as I write this. Exactly. And the thing is, I think the 49ers definitely have gotten a lot more flexible this year, especially since Trey Lance. But they've kind of showed their draft so far and their free agency. They've drafted and gotten players that have made them a little bit more flexible. They can play if their defensive line isn't working as well. Their corners might be slightly better. If they're if the running game is not working with the speed stuff, you can maybe put a bowling ball that can run between the tackles. Their receiving room is deep with speed and then power at the same time. So yes, it's very exciting.
Very exciting. And I do believe that Kelts is onto something here, that Shanahan and Lynch really seem to value versatility as one of the
Yeah.
premier assets. That ability to run 3 or 4 different looks out of the very same formation with the very same players on the field.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare for a defense. To have to believe that any one of 4 outcomes could come from any individual formation, and that you need to be ready for a power run, an outside run, a deep shot, or something over. Like, it's crazy to defend. And it's easy to understand why Kyle Shanahan has attempted to bring in these types of players. It seems as if the roster is now built from top to bottom with valuable assets that offer that versatility.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see how the last 5 or 10 spots shake out on this 53-man roster. They're going to be some damn closely contested matchups.
And maybe, well, I think both guys make the roster, Ray McLeod and Danny Gray. Do you think
I think
both
so
make
as well.
Yeah, both make the roster. My thing is, which one do they use more on that?
Great question.
I think I would have to say Ray McLeod, especially at the beginning, just because he maybe has more experience. But and they like to use those experienced guys. So
I could see Ray having more touches, but Danny Gray having more receptions.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like them handing it off more to Ray McLeod. I can see him as that
end
type
around.
of guy as well.
Yeah.
Real quick, Celts Chronicles. We haven't seen the best of Shanahan with the playbook wide open. His trust in and game decisions in crucial moments should be better. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan, in a sense, has no more excuses. Like, maybe not this year he's not winning the Super Bowl, but if they can get pretty good next year as well, he really has no more excuses to not win or get to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl. Because once Trey gets a little more experience, maybe he has an excuse this year because he has an inexperienced quarterback, but he has no excuses left. And I mean, that's a great point we make there. It's gonna be exciting because we've seen how genius he is without an open playbook, and now it's gonna be open. So
absolutely. What we need to see this year is an evolution of it. It's got to be clear that we're headed in the right direction. What we cannot have is the trend that has been present since Kyle Shanahan came to San Francisco, which is we've not had back-to-back winning seasons.
Right.
If we drop below 500 this year, I will be disappointed. With this roster, with the depth on this team, with all of those players at the top end of their positions being paid as such, if we have a sub 500 season, I'll be devastated.
Yeah, me too. And I think I don't want that the earlier on, like the jitters earlier on, or whatever you call it, that we had last year. I do not want that to happen, because if we have that happen, it could be bad. And I mean, especially how the schedule is shaking out. The 49ers had easy stretches last year where they could rebound. We can't rebound this year because we have tough game after tough game. So I really don't want to see that out of the play calling of Kyle Shanahan, as well as we saw it last year. I want to see the 49ers get off to a strong start right away and then just keep it rolling all throughout the season. And then one more thing. Oh, go
If
ahead.
we don't start like 3-2 or better, it is going to be a rough season.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And well, and that's the thing. Like, could be a season where, if we start off bad, it could like it could be a really telling to where the rest of the season is going to go.
Yeah, it could
because
absolutely snowball.
it's not going to go any better throughout the season because of our schedule. So, yeah, that could be a good thing as well. But maybe he opens up the playbook a little bit more for Trey Lance next year. That's why, hey, the 49ers, it's really a win-win because we have a stacked roster this year, and then next year we'll get even better. So
very true.
Yeah. Well, everyone, this has been a lot of fun. We've been here for the last 41 minutes. Big shout out to Rob Schuh. He's been doing shows for the whole day, and he just keeps talking, and it's amazing to hear. So, can we get a clap in the chat for Rob Schuh? Thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
Benjamin, thank you for having me on. Honestly, always a pleasure chatting with you. Yeah. You're an insightful dude. You ask good questions, and you get me thinking and talking about my Niners, and that's something I love to do, my friend.
Okay, well, we will see everyone later. Thank you for watching. This has been Rob Schuh. Go, obviously, if you guys haven't already subscribed to his channel, go subscribe to his channel. Real quick, Kelce Chronicles, trust is everything. First half versus Texans was shaky. Then he put trust in Trey, and we seen what happened. Jimmy made it made it tough. Sorry, Jimmy made it tough. Shanahan deserves a ton of credit. I've been hard on him. Yes, he does. He does for sure. And again, that's why I don't want to see, like, we saw the shakiness in the first half for the Texans. I don't want to see that at the beginning of the season.
No, I do not either. And I just want to take a moment to, acknowledge what you had shared earlier, Kelce Chronicles. I do hope that everything is okay on your end. I know Kelce Chronicles is a good dude. And so I wanted to say that for sure.
Yep. Okay, everyone. Well, that is the show. Thank you for watching. This has been a lot of fun. We'll see you guys probably later on this week. At least I will.